my name is Shelby and I'm an educator here with BEMP, and we are at the Bosque del Apache. We are going to look at some migrating birds that are here in the wintertime in New Mexico. So come along with me. Today we are going to be learning about some bird adaptations, and especially their beaks and what they're adapted to. So the first thing we're going to do is play a little activity that kind of shows you how bird beaks are adapted to different food items. Many birds migrate during the wintertime. Some birds that are here in New Mexico during the wintertime are different species of ducks, a lot of times Canada geese, some sandhill cranes. And when they're making their migration, they have to eat a lot beforehand. And so they have to make sure they have the right beak to do that. So what you'll need for this activity is just regular stuff around your house that can be used as a beak. So for me, I used just some chopsticks that I had, a spoon, and some tweezers. So whatever you can find that can be like different bird beaks, it's great for this activity. You also need to find some food items that could be picked up with your beaks, or your different materials that could be beaks. And that could be beans, it could be little puff balls, it could be rubber bands or hair ties, anything like that that can be picked up with your little beaks. So whatever you can find around your house. And definitely play this with any siblings you have or friends that you might have, because it actually is a pretty fun game. So you're going to play multiple rounds of this game, and the goal of the game is to get as many food items as possible into either your hand or a cup, and that's going to kind of be like your stomach for your food items. And you want to pick it up with whatever beak you have. And so you're going to play with multiple people and see which beak picks up whatever food item the best. So the first thing you're going to do is you need to create a little data table. And on my data table here, I put rounds. So we did 6 rounds. And then whatever the stuff on the top is going to be what beak you had, and then the food items on there as well. So we had some rubber bands, some pins, and then just little crumple of pieces of paper. And you're gonna count how many things you picked up for each round. I suggest doing it for about 30 seconds per round, and trying to pick up as many things as you possibly can, and then count each one and write it down. So we'll show you real quickly how we played. And like we said, it was about 20 to 30 second intervals of us playing and picking up some different food items with our beaks, and then recorded it all down. So I'll show you our data sheets afterwards. after we were done, we were able to tell that some beaks were actually really good at picking up certain food items. So our spoon was the best at picking up the paper balls that we crumpled up because they're able to just scoop them, whereas the rubber bands and the pins were a little bit too flat and it couldn't get a good scoop on them. But the tweezers were really good at picking up both the rubber bands and the pins. These were really tiny pins, and so the tweezers could get that little pickup on both of them. And then the chopsticks really were only good for the rubber bands because they were wide enough to pick up, and the paper balls, they were able to pick those up too. But the pins, they were just too small. They were too skinny and too flat to the ground, and it just wasn't working for them. With each beak, it was adapted to a very specific food item, which is very similar to how birds work. So if you were to look at a sandhill crane beak, which is here during the wintertime, they have a pretty long beak, and that's because they're able to go in the ground and pick up some different bugs that might be living in there, maybe some lizards or anything that they can get out of the ground with their long beak. Or even a bald eagle that has a really sharp hooked beak. They're able to grab and tear food, and their talons help them too with that. So you could tell that different birds have different beaks depending on what they eat. For the last part of the activity, we're just gonna go birding around our neighborhood. So before I went birding at the Bosque della Pace, but you don't have to go somewhere fancy like that to go birding. You can just look around you. There's tons of birds outside that you can see just looking out your window, and that is great. And so we're gonna go and look at some birds at a feeder that I have in my backyard. But really, you don't have to have a feeder to look at birds. You can look on the power lines, or you can look in a tree, or even if they're just flying above you, anything like that. And if you don't know the species of bird, that is totally fine. You can just record down some characteristics of them, like what color they are, maybe how big they are, what their beak looks like, and anything like that you can record down to keep track of them. Or there's some apps you can use as well, or some resources online that you can use to look up some species of birds, and I will list them right here. And let's do it. Let's get birding. It's my favorite thing. Okay, I have quite a few house finches, and in the back I actually have a white-winged dove as well. They're all just hanging out on the feeder, getting some food. She wants to eat them. So for me, what I have is, can you not? So what you'll need for this, so you could tell that with each food item, they were adapted to a specific, no.